Hey, Haggis. Hi, Miriam. We are live. However, we are waiting on Little Miss Audit. Can you hear me okay? This is still trying to pop in. Here we go. Okay? We're going to pause that. Mute. Great. I'm glad. So we're waiting on Little Miss Audit. Is it still echoing? Hey, always a minion. Hi, Amanda. Irish Mart. Hello. Hi, no one. Okay, thank you very much. Yep, as I said, we have to wait a second or two for Little Miss Audit. She got delayed a second, so I thought we could do the roll call and see who's here and say hello to everybody. Hello, Kate. How are you doing today? And thank you, Miriam. Thank you, Haggis, for modding. I really appreciate it. This will be nice and informative. I'm looking forward to this. Hey, Amy. Amy M is present. Present for the roll call. Yep, I'm excited for this. This is an incredible opportunity. No bones about that. Your fave chicas and no one. Yep. Well, we had switched it so that way she could be here, and then her appointment switched exactly at the same time this afternoon. So, but if it's going to go to hell, it's going to go to hell. Whatever, it's all good. Oh. I am freaking freezing. It's supposed to be summerish here, and it's not. I know she always has that yellow lightning strike, doesn't she? Amanda does. Well, I hope you're all doing well this evening. This we'll get started as soon as Audit shows up, but I can start going through. I wanted to go through their website real quick. Audit's already seen it. She's already been involved with Kimberly and Ann. So we can work on that while she is still dragging her heels, getting ready. But Andrews and Thornton has been around for a while. Ann Andrews is one of the founders. Hey, Ann. Hi, hippie chick. And they are, they're just an incredible crew. She has a few partners, Sean Higgins and Robert Seco. And as they were talking the other day, they have been intimately and extensively involved in the Mormon LDS suit that came up. And I'll explain that process here in just a little bit of what had happened. But I thought it would be nice for you to hear from a victim's advocate point of view of how we put this process together. And so that way you could do the same should you want to. Sebastian makes an appearance when when you mod Michael's channel. I always love watching Michael's channel. Yep, so we had a lot of questions, and I'm going to go through those questions also. But I've put them into different categories, and we'll walk through it so that way all the questions are answered. But part of as I said, what I wanted to bring to you is to bring it as a point, a perspective of a victim's advocate. And most law firms, when you're dealing with them, they want to deal with the victim themselves. And so calling around trying to find somebody to take this on has been a little bit of it's been complex, let me tell you that. Because as survivors know, the law firms don't want to deal with Scientology. And if they do, they want to talk directly to the victim. They don't want to talk to an advocate or somebody else. And so trying to even just get the conversation started was tough. When I started looking into the LDS case back in the fall, in October, when Crazy Love had brought it up, because she started working with it and started working on legislation to pass and to write. And that was just really incredible seeing how that was going about. I didn't really do much into the law firm itself because I didn't know who the law firm was. And then in February, when Cajun Juju sent me that video of the podcast from the day before, from the Mormon podcast, that was almost eye-opening. And to be real honest, it was prayed about. So we had been asking for and wanting, hey, Ann, hi. And Kirby's mom, haven't seen you guys in a while. So I called the following day and said, hey, this is the case. It was with an intake person, with the receptionist. And I said, I am a victim's advocate. Please just don't hang up on me. I want to talk with you. I see that the LDS case is very similar in nature. It's very correlated and very paralleled. And so we talked for a little bit with the intake officer, not we, I did. And she passed my information on to Kimberly Kdegonia. Kimberly Kdegonia surprisingly called me at about 10:30 at night. And I was absolutely shocked. I'm surprised that I even picked up the phone because you know how that goes with all of the spam calls nowadays. And we talked for a couple of hours on the phone. And she was very interested. She was very courteous. She was very involved. She was very informed. And I was just absolutely thrilled that she took the time to talk to the victim's advocate. She said, you have my ear. Send me what you have. You have my ear. And so I wrote up a case proposal, which was way broader than what I really needed and what their expertise is. But I wrote up a case proposal, a couple of pages long. It was a little long. And she so eloquently told me what their expertise was and what expectations should be and all of her experience. So then I talked with the four of us, with Audit, Serge, and Michael, because we've been working on stuff behind the scenes for over a year now. And I said, Serge, okay, time for you to come in. I need for you to vet this company. And we needed to ask them questions. Some of the questions were, are you retained by Scientology? If you have a retainer for the Church of Scientology, there's our beautiful girl. There's our Audit. Hello, Audit. Welcome. You're on mute, darling.
Sorry. So so technically challenged. So hello, Mona and chat. And I don't know who's here. I see Hadj's name up here. So how is everyone?
We have quite a few people. You're welcome. Thanks for joining. We were just discussing how it came about, and I was just pretty much tap dancing, waiting for you.
Well, hopefully you told everyone that you have been working extremely hard on this for a long time, and that it's been a process of hard work, determination, and appreciate you.
Well,
This is
thank you,
Mona's
Audrey.
baby, guys.
It has been my baby. It truly has been my baby.
Mhm.
Um, I don't give myself credit for that because we did work as a team. I was just talking about where we vetted Kim, and at that time her other assistant that she was working with, and we had a very long Zoom conversation with them, with her and her assistant, on what the expectations of a case could look like. And so when we talked about it, as I said, the first question was, "Are you retained already by Scientology?" Because if they were, then there's it was off the table to begin with. And the second question is, "Are you afraid of Scientology?" And we discussed in length about the fair gaming and what could happen and what's happened in the past to other law firms,
And
and what their expectations of a case would look like, whether it would be sexual abuse, sexual exploitation, sexual harassment, and those were all within the realm, but they wanted to get a feel for what the case was going to look like and where it could go. So at the end of that conversation, we and them, the firm, decided that it was a good fit to move forward to the next step of the investigation. And the investigation would include bringing in some people that we knew had sexual assault, sexual abuse in their past pertaining to Scientology, so that way they could get a feel for where this case could go. And so at that time, we did invite a few people that we knew of. And because of privacy, I'm not going to tell you who they were. Some of them you could probably guess because of their statements outright in the public forum. But for the most part, it is a private thing and it's privileged conversations. And that's the only reason I knew or Audit knew of them, was because we were asked to do the original initial investigation. After that, we put out the introductions to those that needed to be or wanted to be interviewed for the select few. And then Kimberly came back on and said, "Hey, we're I we're ready to roll on the next part of the investigation. Let's open it up to the general population." And then that seemed to take forever because Anne was on vacation, because Anne said, "Oh no," she raised her hand and said, "No, no, no, I want to be a part of this." It's that important to them. This is that important to this law firm. So she wanted to be involved, but we had to wait for her to come back from vacation. And it took every part of my patience, panties, to wait, because I'm a bippity boppity boo. Let's get this changed and over with now. It didn't happen that way. And I'm sure it was just as long waiting for you to Audit.
it was, excuse me, and but it was worth the wait, because I know, if I could jump in, at the beginning when we first had well, you had a meeting with them first, obviously, but then it
Mhm.
grew, and I got to hear them, and just their passion, their background, that these are actual prosecutors who this was their specialty, and they weren't afraid to take on LDS, and they're not going into this blind either, but it's like there's less fear now than there ever was at prior, I believe. It's not like the days of where it was just Graham Barry versus Scientology is over. I think
Mhm.
that more and more lawyers are going to be willing to step up. But these ladies, they were just phenomenal. Just talking to them, hearing them, it filled me with hope that the victims that we stand up for, that we go to, every meeting that we go to and attend, or we go to a protest, is for the victims. And
Mhm.
here we are like, wow, they may finally have a voice, and a real one. And one that can take to court, one that can argue at trial, one that can go before judges, one that has a history of winning at
Right.
this kind of thing. So that this is so monumental. It's so huge. It's just it was like literally answer to prayers. I mean, I'm just gonna have to put it out there.
And I've
I
already
remember
said
Mona
that once,
saying,
and yes, it is.
yeah,
Yep.
she said she wanted to pray that lawyers would just drop out of heaven. Then like what, within a week?
And they did.
They did, like literally. So it was so amazing. So, but then it's just going to be up to people if they want to pursue, if they're ready. Because she made it very clear at your when she spoke on your forum that it's not, we're not, no one's going to get pushed. It's for those who are ready. And if they're not ready at whatever level they're ready, it's okay. They have that. They know how to work with victims. They're experts at this. This is their career, mind you, not just the religious aspect of it, but just victims, and that they will work with them at whatever level they're at, even if it's just listening at this point. Like they're willing to give all this time and energy, whether the person wants to actually pursue it or not. And then maybe down the road, as more people step up and they get, it's like the meetings, right? One by one, people start stepping up, and then they realize, oh, it's not so terrifying, and it's actually liberating and exciting and fun. And I think
Right.
it's going to be like that. You may have a few at the beginning, and then then it's like, oh, well, hey, wait, I want justice too,
Right.
and it's just going to grow. But I'm so excited, and really, Mona, I can't say enough of this. Really is all the hard work that you put in. Yeah, I know we work together, but this really was your thing, and you deserve the credit for it.
Oh, thank you. You're going to make me blush. Okay, watch out. We're going to go big face for a second.
I think I have this weird shadow. Sorry, guys. I'm like in this weird. Like
We're going to, oh, if I get
I
it
can never
straight
figure
here.
out the camera angles. Like I don't know where to look. Cause I'm like I'm so awkward on these
Hey, you
things.
guys
Sorry,
got to
guys.
just put up with our silliness because Audit and I get silly together.
Yes. Well, I'll tell you, I like being behind the camera. I'm not. I don't know how to look. I don't know. Guys, you just gonna have to put up with
Oh,
me.
so I put together just a list of topics that we can talk about, and these will answer all the questions. I saw Eyes to See that you posed another question, and if you do and you say questions, I'll go back through and hit the new questions if we haven't answered them as we go through this. So first, it's Andrews and Thornton. There's their website. And Ann Andrews is the founding partner. Kimberly Kdegonia is an assistant. Okay, the title just went completely out of my head, but that's okay. She's a badass
Paralegal.
lawyer. She's an associate. There we go.
Okay.
And she's the badass lawyer.
Oh
We'll
yeah.
just put that, the badass attorney. And then her assistant, Natalie Paniagua. Thank you, Amy, for
She's the
helping me
paralegal, is
pronounce
what
that.
I meant, right? Like Natalie's the
She is the
attorney.
paralegal, yes. And I know there was a little bit of confusion the other day when I was saying, "Oh, just email Natalie," and it's wrong, Natalie. We're thinking
So
Natalie growing up in Scientology. That's her life after a cult, not that Natalie, but this Natalie. Um, Amy, I will answer that for you. That'll be actually tomorrow night. Yes, we do have a positive on that. So their competency, I know we've talked a little bit and touched a little bit on their competency, but her as a prosecuting attorney for the Riverside County, and she has dealt with child abuse, child neglect, child mortalities, the whole 9 yards. Beyond the fact that they were the litigators for and are the litigators for the Mormon LDS suit, they were involved in the Catholic Church suit, the Boy Scouts of America suit.
this is top tier. Can I jump in something too, real quick?
Absolutely.
Because
Yep.
they also said, because their firm is here in California, if it gets beyond where it's beyond our borders here in California, she's able to work under I guess the law firms of other law firms through
Mhm.
associations. I'm not sure exactly how that works. I kind of know, but so I guess they retain lawyer. I don't know how exactly it works, but that's what they do. So it's not like, oh, if you're not in California, then you have no hope. No, they make sure wherever they are that you will have the representation everywhere.
Correct.
So I
And
think that's important.
we're going to touch a little bit on when we talk about the difference between coordinated claim and class action claim. But with the coordinated claim, you don't have to hire these attorneys. You can hire your own attorney, and you can be in New York or North Carolina or Florida or Oregon, no matter where you're at. You hire your lawyer and they coordinate behind the scenes administratively and judicially. And so you don't have to hire these people. It's not Amy, Joe, Audit, Mona, we're all not getting together and filing one big class action suit or a combined suit. These are your own cases. These are your own points of privilege, your own privacy, and that's you don't have to.
I like,
You
and
know
the
that's
ability to be fair game. Like, I mean, I like the fact that Mona, she let them know. I mean, she's honest with them. She doesn't. Nobody's trying to like trick them into doing this. Then they're going to be shocked. Everything was on the table. They know exactly what they're dealing with. These lawyers, they're very educated, on this stuff. Like they are doing their own homework and their own research beyond it, and they're not afraid. Just like the protesters these days, we're just not afraid. And if I can plug, I'm going to be putting out another Substack, I think tomorrow, and basically it's going to touch a little bit on like we're not as afraid as we used to be.
Mm-mm. And to be real honest, they they're not a they're we talked about it. In fact, I even apologized up front before we even started. I said, Kimberly, I am so sorry that you're the one that picked the short straw to take this case because you may have some fair gaming going on. You may have some black PR going on. And I am sorry ahead of time. I am so sorry that you may have to deal with it. And you know what? She said, I'm used to it. This is what we dealt with the Mormon case. Maybe not as bad, but yeah, it's just yeah. And about the competency, I want to touch on a comment that was just made about. I'm not going to bring up another streamer, but about negative comments left on Reddit and under their posts and stuff like that. Hell yeah, they beat the Catholic Church. Hell yeah, they beat the Mormons. Are you kidding me? There's going to be one hell of a lot of negative press out there because they're going to put the negative press out there. They don't want you to see. Yeah, they of course there's going to be negativity.
Yeah.
It's going to be all you know how much more negativity there's going to be now that Scientology sees they're going to be putting black PR all out there. Are you kidding me?
You have to be
Whatever.
prepared and understand what it is and not just go on Reddit and believe everything because, OSA, I think, is very much involved with Reddit. This is how they work. They work through people and keyboard warriors, but it's their people. And you just got to ignore that stuff and look at the fact that, I mean, they beat like the Catholic Church, the Mormons, and they're going to beat Scientology too. But we just have to overcome that the urge to just believe or like to get scared off when we hear something contrary. It's just
Mm-hmm.
um
And I also want to comment on there was a few comments and a few questions about about the reviews, but also about the money. They're not charging anything. They're doing this pro bono. Not only pro bono, and if it does go, if any of the cases go through on a contingency, but hell yeah, they're going to earn their money. And they're people, they're a business, they're professionals. If they do charge on a contingency for cases that go through, whatever, that's the way it should be. They're
Yeah.
lawyers. That's what they get paid to do. And two, the rest of it's pro bono. They're not charging us. There's no retainer. There's nothing um, to donate to. It has
Yeah.
nothing to do with the money. There's
And they're
no
talking like,
pressure.
I'm sorry, that they're going to be doing more even than, like, say if they do get the contingency, which is a 1/3 of the winnings. I mean, they're the ones that did the work to get that. None of us are able to do that on our own. So they earned that. But it sounds to me, that they put so much more effort into what they do, to not just to like go to the court and write up the complaints and go argue, like just the lawyer stuff. They really work one-on-one with victims, and they understand how to deal with victims, so they're going to be putting a lot of their own personal effort and time into really making it a safe and comfortable space as victims go through, because it's going to be hard on them as well. It's very hard to face all this stuff. And so they're going to go above and beyond. I believe that, because they did it when you look at their history, that's what they have done.
Right. And to repeat, and I will go through um, when we talk about the coordinated versus class action, but this isn't a class action. It's not a tort claim and it's not a combined claim. These are individual claims. So your result versus my result is going to be different. It could be the same, but it could be different because they are individual claims.
And that's good, because somebody may want to settle sooner, and take one, maybe a lump sum payment. And another person may say, no, I want to I want to be heard at court. I want a judge to hear me. And I don't
Mhm.
care, win or lose, whatever, I want to be heard. And everyone's going to be able to make up their mind how they want their case to go, at what pace. And so that's the good part about it being individual.
No, Amy, this is not the law firm of Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe.
Uh, and I can't read chat, so I don't know what's
It
going
made
on
me
there.
crack up.
No, it's like,
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
think so.
I mean, we
I
just,
mean, they're
a
going
competent
against
lawyer is going to cost money. And if they're willing to do the upfront and everything for free, and with it comes the hope of contingency or pro bono, okay. I mean, there's just we're not taking on the bottom of the barrel law firm because they'll happen to have feelings and feel sorry for us. This is a badass law firm, you guys.
they
This
wouldn't
is
take this case if they didn't feel they could win. Let me tell
mm-mm.
you, because contingency means you don't get paid unless you win. So they will get a third of whatever comes in, So if it's $10 million in total, they get over 3 million. And so that's a nice payday, but they're not going to take that case and put all that work in if they don't feel they can win. If they get to the point where they say, no, we don't feel like we can win this, they're not going to take the case, any of the cases, if they don't feel they can win it, because
I
otherwise
agree.
they're not dumb. They are lawyers.
They have
But
kids to feed and schools to
right.
pay for. Julie, I see your question and we will get to that. Please remind me if I don't answer your question because that's very important. It's extremely important.
I wish I
Okay.
could see it. I have to figure
She says, does this have any effect on shutting down Scientology and their illegal activity? I
good question.
missed it. But yes, it's a great question. And yes, it will. We will get to that. I promise I do. I do want to answer that because that's actually the exciting part of all of this. So the next thing, the reason they didn't mention Scientology during the stream the other day, they are very uh, guarded in their verbiage until suits or the cases have been filed. They are very guarded and knowledgeable in what they need to say and can't say. And at this point, they don't have a case that has been filed. And so they needed to avoid talking about Scientology, F Sciento. So for right now, they were not, they did not and would not. And that's okay. And they
Yes,
explained that to Serge and I before we hopped on.
they're giving basically what it looks like and what they have done and where it could go. But yeah, it's too soon for specifics. It's just a strategy, just like me, right? When I say, oh, I need, I'm doing something, but I can't say it because they're watching too. And you don't think that their lawyers would know if they slip up, here and there, that they would get them right then and there. So they have to be
Right.
careful. It's just
So
wisdom.
there was a question, who was the organization that they had mentioned? Because Anne had mentioned several times the organization. She wasn't necessarily talking about Scientology. She was talking about us as an advocacy group, us in particular, Serge and I, but she was talking about all of us that are working with the ex Scientologists, with the survivors and the victims. And so, Haggis, well, I'm not on there. I'm sorry. It'll be okay. So that's the organization that she was talking about. And she was just using a general terminology to talk about us as a group, non-group. Did you freeze on it? Nope, you're there.
No, I'm listening.
So that's what she was talking about. And she wasn't necessarily talking about, yep, we love our Surge. That's for sure. That's what she was referring to, was the organization of us as an advocacy venue. Civil versus criminal. These are civil claims. Civil claims have a lower burden of proof than a criminal claim. Tomorrow night, we're going to talk about a criminal claim that I'm like really excited about. But I have a cat outside. Sorry, squirrel. But these are civil claims. They will, as I said, they have a lower burden of proof. Audit, do you want to talk about civil versus criminal?
Sure. Criminal cases, you have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. And that's the highest level of what you need to approve. It's not beyond any doubt. It's just beyond what a reasonable person would find doubtful. And then there could also be different rules as far as statute of limitations. There's different rules. Civil court is much easier threshold. It's beyond a preponderance of the evidence. So it's like 51%, yeah, they're in the wrong, or or vice, or 51%, no, we don't think so. So it's just beyond the middle point, like that you're beyond that middle threshold, more likely than not type of thing, not beyond any reasonable doubt. So it's much easier to strive for. And also, working not pro bono, the criminal would deal more like that, that'd be more pro bono. But when you're talking contingency basis, you're more likely to be doing that for civil, because civil grants awards, financial awards, where in a criminal, it's usually, you're looking for guilt, innocent, you're going to jail, not going to jail type of thing. So it makes more sense to do civil. Doesn't mean that there won't be criminal beyond that. Maybe a different set of lawyers, I don't know, but they are prosecutors, so they're very obviously very well versed in the criminal. But for now, this is step one. How do you eat the dragon? It's like one bite at a time type of thing.
Right. The other thing that I would add to that is that if you were filing your civil and you had your intake, and they seen that your statute of limitations was in the proper qualifications and eligibility, then you could file a criminal case also. And because of Marcy's law in California, they could help you do that, and they would help you do that. So there is a chance that if you have a case, and it could be criminal also.
Right. I need to jump into there too.
Yep.
And don't forget, criminal is only brought by like a district attorney, prosecutor. It's a government action criminal. It's like, because it's not like the victim is not actually the victim in criminal cases. The victim is the state.
Right.
And so or the municipality. So it's always that's why it says the state of California versus so-and-so, or the city of Los Angeles versus so-and-so, because they're the victim. So it's always a government employee, prosecutor, DA, city attorney, that's going to bring the charges. But with the Marcy's law, that what they can do now is that they are able, the civil attorney is able to still work with and be a guidance and an advisor to the victim, you know, who is basically you're the a witness, because the actual victim, like I said, is state, is the government entity. But they now can have, because it gets very hard. There's, especially in SA cases, it's very hard on victims in the state sometimes, and that the processes can be very ugly. They, you know, we all remember back in the day where, you know, like, you know, women of SA, like, or men, whatever, they may be, you know, like they try to, the defense attorney may try to blame them, you know, as like, you know, what did they do? You know, were you dressed a certain way? That's how, you know, it was really horrible. And so the Marcy law and all this kind of stemmed out of all that, is to give that protection and guidance and support for the victims as they go through the criminal process. But these attorneys will not be handling the criminal process at all. They are not able to. So
Correct.
that's why we're doing civil with them. Doesn't mean we're not going to do criminal as well, but going through the civil is the best way to get to the criminal, because they will be able to expertly decide, yes, you're within statute of limitations. Yes, this is, you know, this is something that could bring charges, and then assist them in going to the state, or what, you know, whatever, you know, whatever entity, and asking them to file charges and advocate for that victim, that that is done.
Right. And we have to remember there's only been one civil case that has been won, and that was the Larry Wollersheim case. And that was greatly reduced. That's the only one. All the rest of them have been settled, which is a damn shame. Sorry, Grammy's swearing a lot on this, but that's a damn shame. I mean, it's great for the person. It's great for the victim. It's great for the person that filed it. Don't get me wrong there whatsoever. But it just doesn't put anything on record. So anything of that suit is just merely allegations. So it didn't do anybody really any good except for the person that went through the suit. And it did, and that sounded cold, but you know what I mean. So in criminally, there hasn't been a criminal case. Everything's either bought off, paid off, or
Scared off.
scared off. Yep. Because remember, no victim, no crime.
Mhm.
And
Right,
that's,
and even though the state is the victim, you still need a victim, which is, you know, you
you're
still need the
right.
victim to
So
come forward and testify, or, you know, give evidence. There has to be evidence of a real crime, of a real victim, for the state to be a victim.
an example is somebody that's been raped. And when they're raped, they're always saying, well, remember how some people get scared off and they go, no, I don't want to press charges now. Or somebody that's been abused. No, I don't want to press charges. Because no victim, no crime. If they can get the victim to back off, the state has no, unless it's a child, and that's a different story. Because
Right.
then that happens. But no victim, no crime.
I know. And the one other exception is like in DV cases, if there's marks and all that stuff, like you no longer, because that's where that changed, because a lot of times the abused party would say, oh, you know, they would call the police and everything, but when it came time to press the charges, they won't. So now in a lot of jurisdictions, if there's evidence of violence when the police arrive, I believe it can it can proceed beyond
Yeah.
whether or not the person wants to do it or not.
So, but you just have to take that into account, is that on the record, legislatively and judicially, and in the law enforcement's eyes, Scientology hasn't done anything wrong.
Yeah, that's got to change.
We know dang well that it has. But on record, it hasn't. So we need to get these cases, and the first step in that is reporting. And this is the first step, is making sure people are comfortable to report and that you have lawyers to report to. And let's get some civil cases going. Let's get some judgments going. We're going to talk tomorrow night more about the criminal side of it. So coordinated claim versus class action. This was a common question. A class action suit is what's called the tort suit. It's a thing suit. So something, the car broke, the washer broke, it hurt me, it hurt all sorts of other people. So there's a class action suit because something did some damage. And that's what that class action, everybody had the same experience. A combined claim is like Bixler and Gwaine, or Audit LA et al. That's, oh, thank you very much, doesn't matter. I appreciate that. And it is all, it's a coordinated, you were all on the ship together and all had abuse together. These are coordinated, these are individual cases. So Audit has a sexual abuse case, Mona has an abuse case. They're all different cases of similar nature against the same entities, because we have all sorts of these RTC, CSI, Church of Scientology, all of that. But it's against the same people, but we all have different experiences. And so a coordinated case is Audit has her case, Mona has her case, but behind the scenes, the lawyers get together and they coordinate the judicial process. It saves the judicial system money. It saves time. An example would be bringing about doctrine, policy, and practices and how it's abusive. And bringing David Miscavige, depositioning him for his information, or the head of RTC for their information. And we have 100 cases. Instead of having to deposition and under testimony 100 times, you do it once and you spread that information out about everybody. And it's a little bit harder because if there's different lawyers involved from around the country, then they coordinate what questions and who they want to deposition, what testimonies, what witnesses, and they coordinate that, the judicial process part of it. Another thing is that when they register the coordination, you get one judge. So an example they gave is if there's a judge up in Sacramento and he says, oh, this type of information shouldn't come through, it's not pertinent. And there's a judge down in San Diego or Denver that says, oh yeah, we want that on the docket. We want this information. Then there's inconsistencies in the claims and the cases, to where one judge does it, he's the one listening, and he's the one deciding on what information is pertinent, what should go through the evidentiary hearings, and you have one judge dealing with it versus all sorts of different processes.
I think they call it enjoining.
Does that give a little bit of a better understanding of coordination of claims?
Yeah, I think another term for it is enjoining. They enjoin the cases. I believe that's the other term for it.
No, you're not joining the
So
cases.
they're not enjoining it?
Nope, you're not joining the cases at all. They stay 100%. Nope, they
No, I
stay
know.
100%
They say separate. No, I don't mean
individual.
combining it into one
You're
case, but I mean,
right.
okay. No, but I mean, where they
Yeah,
coordinate
nope,
it into
it's
where,
not a joiner.
not enjoin. No, enjoin, not joint. It's not joint.
And we might be saying the same thing, two different names
Yeah.
for it, but the official
We'll leave
name that
that
they
one
gave,
down.
what is called a coordinated claim. A coordination. And
Right.
so, yeah, all the cases are completely separate. I don't know Audit's in there. Audit doesn't know Mona's got a case. We don't know if Lara or Ann or Amy, you don't know anybody else's case. And your client attorney privileges just you and the attorney. There's no other names on there whatsoever. It's your case. It's your resolution. It's your justice. Like we were talking a few minutes ago, if I felt my justice was just to be heard and a sorry, for them to say sorry, That would be the resolution and the ending of my case. In your case, you may say, nope, I want to go to trial. I want restitution. I want money. I want the whole shebang. And that could be your resolution. And you would see that to the end. It has completely nothing to do with one another. It's just the coordination of processes in the judicial system. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's that would take years off of it. Imagine if they had to go to every single jurisdiction individually and, and do everything, like, by doing it this way, it's gonna save years probably, or months, whatever, a long time from the process
Right,
and a lot of work, because it's all being overseen by one entity, one judge, and everything's kind of, yeah, separate, but together in a sense.
right.
So,
So, and Rocks in a Box said refers to a process of uniting multiple civil actions cases that share common questions of fact or law. Correct. So it's the
yeah.
coordination of the judicial process.
And you don't have to have the same outcome, like you can come and go whenever you want, which
And
is
and
good.
timeline, correct.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
some people may want to go at a slower pace. It may be overwhelming, and
Yeah,
others may want to just, "Oh, I want this over with." So it's good.
right. Yep. So again, you're not dealing with seeing if Mona and Audit can get along and making sure we're both going to be friends to the end, and we are, but in
Yes.
lots of hugs. But you know what I mean?
Yeah, same.
You know, that's not what you're looking at. You're not looking at corresponding with other plaintiffs. You are you. You are solely your case is based on your merits, the merits and the standing and the evidence of your case.
I'm
So,
excited. I'm like hoping we get a lot of people that will respond to the call and do the interview and see if they have a case, or at least start the process of talking if they're not quite ready to go there yet. At least, get to
right.
know and feel them out and talk to them and see where it goes. Because I feel I finally have the first amount of hope that we're, instead of just pie in the sky talking about justice for victims, and not that they're empty sayings, they're not, but now finally to see faces and names of people that can actually help or are willing to help if there is a case and it gets beyond, the preliminary phases of it, is exciting just to even contemplate.
Definitely. Well, we talked about the process and the expectation of privacy. There's a 100% expectation of privacy. The minute you call for an intake, that's that part of privacy, that client attorney privilege starts.
Yep.
And they were very strong about that.
And Mona and I will not be privy to any. So if anyone's worried, no, we're not going to be privy to any of that.
You have their email addresses, and they're on this sheet. They're also in the description. You don't have a general email box where they say email the general email info box. You have Kimberly Kdegonia's email and her assistant NPaniagua. I screw up her name every time.
Sorry, Natalie.
Natalie P. You have their emails direct. It's going straight to them. And the original round, I did introductions only because that just seemed, and that's the only reason I knew who was contacting them, was because I was introducing them. From this
Well, the
point
victim can
on,
tell you. It's just that the lawyers can't.
yeah, right. But from this point on, since Monday on, one of you could email them, or 5,000 of you could email them. I have no knowledge, nobody, Audit, Aaron, Lara, nobody, that is complete client attorney privilege.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And
Right.
but the process is that you're going to have an intake. You're going to, oh, thank you, Haggis. you're going to set up an appointment, and she said it takes about a half an hour Zoom call. A couple of people were several hours already with them. That was the intake. And it may feel like an interrogation, but it's not. It's a way for them to categorize and to know where you're at, whether you're within statute of limitations. They need to know the who, what, where, when, and why. They really do. And I know interrogation is a horrible thing for those of you that used to be in Scientology. I'm sorry. I know that, but they're going to try and do it with the most empathy and compassion that they can.
That'll be at your pace. If you need to take a break and stop, they're going to respect that. They're not going to say, "Oh, our time is valuable." No, you're going to get people who are very empathetic and sympathetic.
Yeah, thank you for that. Doesn't matter. He said that and I just lost the comment. God darn it. You guys are moving too quick. One of the victims that is part of this case, she stated that the law firm was extremely professional and caring, and they don't push at all, that she is in charge of what pace, and it will continue. And you're right, that is the way. And there was somebody that felt like they were being judged. And I understand that now. I know Miriam Francis and I talked about it afterwards, because when you used to have your interrogations, there was a punishment at the end of the interrogations. There was a judgment to it. But I promise you, it's not for judgment. It's for this interrogation, this intake is to make sure that you're getting the proper, what you need properly.
And she doesn't want people led on. She wants to let you know as soon as possible, yes, you fit within, the time limits or the statute of limitations, or no, you don't. And she doesn't want you dragging on with that. Oh, or am I going to get help, or can they help me for endless? It's just, they want to get all the questions, and every attorney does that when they're like anyone who's ever hired an attorney, you're going to go through that. I'm impressed that they do it on Zoom. Usually a lot of times it's on the phone. And so that's a nice added notch. It's like you can make eye contact, see them face to face. But that's
well, when
typical.
we talk with the statute of limitations, for sexual crimes, statute of limitations is a little bit longer. Regular abuse is really short. Now it's not. They changed that, but it was very short. And there are certain sexual crimes that fit into new bills or statute of limitation vacations. And so that's kind of what they're looking for too, is what category, where do you fit, where do we need to be, what do we need to look at, what other questions do we need to ask? And the statute of limitations, the reason I put on here why it doesn't matter is because you may not have a civil case that could be pushed through for resolution, but with what you report, your case could be, or your experience could be, evidence and a witness to the pattern and practice. And every voice counts in this. And when they can build a case showing pattern and practice, and you become a witness to that, your voice is heard. Mm-hmm. And for some people, that's justice. For some people, I'm not going to tell you a name, but I had one person that literally called me and said, I want to be involved. I know it happened many, many, many years ago. I know it's completely out of statute of limitations, but I just need to be heard. I've never told anybody. I can almost cry saying this one, you guys. And she was interviewed. It was way beyond statute of limitations, but her justices, she was finally frickin' heard. My heart broke over that. She was finally heard, and that was her justice.
And maybe
She
she'll
could
be
tell.
heard in court. They could use her as a witness, possibly, like you said, for patterns, and I hope that happens if that's what they want.
Yep, yep. It was and you know, and she was one that was a couple hours on the phone with them. They took the time with somebody that they knew they wouldn't be able to get a dime from. I just think of that. The lawyers, these badass lawyers, took time for somebody that they knew that they would never see a dime from, because this case is important to them.
Yeah,
It's
they personally,
huge.
like, they built their firm based, like, their prosecutors were just, I got different crimes, but now they see this where it's institutional, the Mormon Church, Catholic, institutional abuses that have been allowed, and so they've found their niche. Just like we're all finding our niche, we're fighting Scientology, but they're finding their niche. It's that institutional abuse, that's systemic and ongoing. So
And to bring it around to facts, how enlightening is that for them to tell a jury or to tell a judge, look, this was happening back in the 70s. It hasn't changed. That's
mhm.
it shows pattern, that's for sure. So that's why the statute of limitations doesn't matter. Don't don't discount your story. Don't discount your voice. If you have a story, if you want to get it out, if you want to talk to them, hey puppies, then email them. Set up a time to be interviewed. Do it. Don't feel like you have to be um, the judge of whether or not you can bring it forward. So we're almost to the end here. Who should contact them? I asked that question during the live the other day. These are the end of the questions that I received. Besides, there was some on the technical aspects, and I will go through that. But who should contact them? At this point, I asked them the point blank question of, should it be sexual abuse survivors, sexual assault, sexual exploitation? And with the way that they guard their answers, I heard I heard Ann, the owner of the company, say, bring it on. Human trafficking to include sex trafficking, sexual abuse, sexual exploitation, sexual assault, sexual harassment. I'm sure you could, Marie. People that were abused in the United States, if you're living abroad and you were here and there was abuse, bring it on. If you live in New York, bring it on. If you live in Florida, bring it on. Email them. Let them be um, the jury and the decisive factor. Don't limit yourself. Coercive control. Um, Possibly, I think if it's in, I'm not going to say no. I'm just saying it might be in deciding whether or not if it's part of something else of other abuse.
Doesn't hurt to drop an email and say, hey, I was labor trafficked, I was this, I'm sleep, and it doesn't hurt for them to say, yes, I want to talk to you, or that may be at a later time, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. It doesn't hurt, just reach out. mean, why
But I'm
not?
gonna
You have
tell
nothing
you,
to lose, everything to gain. You know?
absolutely not. A little tease is I asked her, I said, this isn't, my big picture is way bigger than just the sexual part of it. Well, we won't start talking about sex, but it's the bigger part of it. And so we talked, and she said, I know a girl. I know a guy, and hooked me up with one of the biggest, baddest civil rights lawyers I think I've ever met. And also uh, helped me focus the federal claim, which I'm like totally amazed myself on. So, if you email them and it's not their purview, I'm sure she's going to say, no, but I know a guy. No, but I know a girl. They're not going to turn you down.
Right. They know that what they know they're dealing with people who have been horribly, horribly victimized and treated and mistreated. So I really felt like we vetted them. We had nice, long discussions, with
Mm-hmm.
them, and we vetted them. Like we're like I know. Well, Mona did it. She brought it to us, and then we don't want to just bring it out there without vetting them. So I feel really good about them. I had nothing negative to say or think or feel regarding them. I felt like finally there's a chance at justice, and I felt like that will is in good hands. It's gonna, and have good outcomes. I mean, it did for the other, like against the Mormons and the Catholic Church and I believe the Boy Scouts as well. So
Yeah, I'm gonna pop back up here and
don't forget that question. Somebody asked a good question. Was it about the IRS or something like it leading to? Somebody asked
oh,
a good question.
Julie B had answered a question or asked a question, and I will find it. You guys are very talkative. Holy crap, how do I get all the way to the top here?
I think it's like if I'm not mistaken, I don't know. If I remember right, something about like, can this eventually lead to, is it the IRS, the tax system status being removed? I don't know.
Yeah, well, yes, and we will get there. That's part of my bigger picture. Okay, so I don't keep secrets, you guys. There's nothing secretive. It's just letting everybody know, or letting know what's going on as the process evolves. So it has nothing to do with, make sure nobody knows, blah, blah, blah. There's processes, and you have to take them step by step. And sometimes you have to not let the cat out of the bag on the process, because you don't want the process smashed before you can get there. And other times, such as this week, I say this all the time, I'm going to point to the stands, and that's where I'm going to hit the home run. Not just me, all of us, because at this point, I'm going to stand back, and this has legs of its own. This doesn't need me anymore. And it's not about me, it's about you guys and the lawyers. It's the cases. So you guys need to push this however you want to push it, because it's your responsibility, and it's your case. It's your skin on
And
the
if they don't
line.
get victims to come forward, then there's nothing they can do. They are not able to just go against Scientology and fight for the victims if there's no victims to, step up and say, yes, I want help. There is a thing with the statute of limitations. So it does further carve out who will be able to receive help. Thankfully, the statute of limitations has been extended through, a lot of the cases that have happened over the years. Um,
Yeah,
but
in California, it's greatly extended because of the AB 2777. And but that's for cases that were after 2009, before you're 40. It could go 5 years. As I said, if you're left-handed and right-footed, and you wear purple in your hair, you're eligible. And if not, I mean, it's like legislative math half the time. So, but
But they're
that's what
willing
the
to
lawyers are
evaluate
for.
everybody for it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we have the lawyers here for now. They can figure all that out.
And if nobody has a case that they can feel that they can pursue, then, at, then that's this, at least we got the evaluation of, and then, or people don't want to go forward, but at least it's been presented to everyone. Like we finally have something that we can look into and hopefully utilize and hopefully move forward with some great, outcomes. But it's going to be a process, and it's right now it's like the preliminary, right now it's they're looking into it and seeing who, it's very preliminary right now. It's not a quick one night over, by next week this is going to be even up and running. So you just have to remember it's a
The Mormon
process.
case has been going for 2 years, and they have 91 cases going. That's a lot of cases.
It is. I'm very competitive. Well, not that I
I
want
know
more
we need at
victims than
least
that, but
92.
and that sounds horrible. I don't mean it like that. Like I want more victims. I don't. But I know we have so many. I want them all to be heard and to be able to be fought for and to be able to get that justice. And then all this fighting that we're all doing, we're all fighting. It will be a win for everyone, really, because this is what we've been fighting for justice. So I'm
It
looking
is.
forward to it.
And again, justice is going to look different for everybody. So Haggis had a comment. I believe that was a point of concern for a lot of people. If they can infiltrate the government, they could get into a law firm. They can, but having discernment and knowing ahead of time that they're probably going to try
Yeah.
is just going to be key, and they're just going to have to look for that.
And you have to take your chance. I mean, so what do you do? Not move forward because it could happen. You still got to move forward, but you have to use your own, intelligence. If something doesn't feel right or seem right, you say something, and and bring it up to their attention. But, I don't see that these two, I don't think they'd be going after religion, these institutions if they were infiltrated, at least right now. And I think that they would know. It's not a huge firm, but I think they would know if they're being
Right.
sabotaged. So the government's different. The government is so dumb half the time. They don't know what their right hand and left hand is doing. But these ladies are sharp. They know they'd spot a plant, I believe, or sabotage, and they'd see it. And they're not afraid of being fair game, so they're already aware of that. It's just
Right.
it's
ICC asked, will the lawyers be looking at the unlawful policies that have child abuse written into them? Yes, they will be looking at those things. Advocacy is part of what they do versus just litigate. And advocacy, as an example, with the Mormon Church, with the Boy Scouts, they made changes. With the Mormon Church, they've already made, even though all of the suits aren't done, not even litigated at all, they already have law changes that have been happening in Utah because of that. And they will help write the bills. They will help bring that on. So yes, and that is a question that Julie B had asked: is will this help effectuate any changes? Absolutely,
these are the kind of
absolutely. This is
cases
going to
that
help
lead to
change.
legislation and laws that are named after victims. Really, when you have like Megan's law or Marcy's law, this came out of litigation of victims, and then laws get passed and laws change, or they get there's adjudications or whatever. So that's how change happens. Usually is through lawsuits or
Right.
petitions. I mean, there's
And so
different
we
ways,
have,
but it's one way that leads to it.
and it's not part of the sexual part of it, but of certainly the abuse part of it. But look, we've already got the Obolensky law, and they're very interested in talking to us about how we can push that forward. I don't know if they're going to jump on it, but they said they'd help us and direct us and guide us. That's incredible. Another one that we talk about in the Morning Sunshines all the time is getting legislation passed about statute of limitations for cult survivors. abuse survivors because it takes so long to recognize that you were even abused. And then by then, statute of limitations is already long gone. And so that's an incredible legislative change that could be federal or state by state. It would be cool if it was federal, if that could happen. But those are the type of changes that they would help advocate for. So absolutely, hell yeah.
And we all keep pushing.
Yep. Yep. So that answers both Eyes to See and Julie B, both at the same time.
Good questions.
Great questions. I'll let you talk while I. Okay, so little off topic. Amy M says, would this firm possibly know of civil rights law firms that help protesters with their litigation? Stay tuned tomorrow night, Amy M. We got that covered.
It's been working on for a long time. Like there's been a vision at where it needs to go, and but we just need it. It's the hard part is finding people willing to do the hard work. Like we can dream and vision, plead and beg and hope and ask, but it takes people to step up and do. And so that's why I'm really excited that there are now like this law firm that they're stepping up and saying, yeah, we're at least going to give a fair evaluation. They're not playing around. They're not afraid. So this is a huge step, and it should. I don't know about you, but I feel invigorated. I feel like I can, go to the meetings and fight harder with more passion, because I don't, sometimes after a long time, right, you feel kind of hopeless, or you feel like, oh, what's the, not like what's the use, but you're going to keep going. But then like now it's like, this is like a charge. It's like, okay, we're getting somewhere.
I kind of felt like for a while there that it's like banging my head against the wall, because I would call, or I would want to call, or I would put a plan together, something outside the box, but yet you don't have a law firm, or you don't have people that really want to take it forward. Also, the survivors are scared. They haven't been heard. They don't feel heard. They don't feel like they can go anywhere. And it's almost like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. And this was a breath of fresh air to say, somebody's listening. Somebody is listening.
And then we're going to, like, the victims are going to feel too, they're heard, they have a case going. And when we get to the meetings, that's going to get the attention. If you say, hey, there's like I don't know, 100 victims, and there's a lawsuit going, the city's going to, cities all over, they're going to wake up and they're going to listen. The police department's going to have to hear that. Ears are going to perk up, and they're going to be like, huh? Because hasn't been done yet. Like Mona said, there hasn't been any of these cases except for one. But, and so it's gonna change the dynamic even of dealing with the government entities. They're going to take notice as well.
Another thing of bringing statistics to this was huge. Having the Liz Gale's receipts, the list, and being able to put statistics together. And I know you guys were kind of, nobody really wanted to do those surveys, but surveys brought this shit together. That it brought it to where it brought some attention to it. And I had a meeting with the chief of police representative, and they were very helpful with that. I need to continue on with that. It didn't get pushed aside, but I'm wanting to coordinate it with this claim. But statistics matter. And 22% of those that were surveyed, or 22% of those on the receipts for the Liz Gale's list that have committed suicide, that's atrocious. That is that's heartbreaking. That's maddening. That shouldn't be. But it tells a story. So, the statistics, unfortunately, are part of it. So, and it's getting their attention. Let me look to see if there are any more questions.
That's what they use. They use data, like the FBI crime statistics governs policing and how they get their budgets and what they do with their their budgets and stuff. That's their language. So that's how you get government's attention, is through statistics and, pie charts and all that stuff.
Okay, there was Julie's question. And I agree, this is very triggering for people. It's like pulling a band-aid off daily. But unfortunately, the no victim, no crime, and I'm going to say it again, a sad story is just a sad story without evidence and without reporting. And when you tell your story, it's healing. But when you continually tell your story and it's just an echo chamber and nothing results of it, I think that's got to be damaging also. That's got to be traumatic too.
Right,
Just
but I
my
think that's with,
thoughts.
yeah, with the hope. It's like any crime victim. You go to, you're in a trial. You're it's going to be really hard. And I do believe that they can have measures in place. Like, I think if they feel that that person it needs more care, that they're going to help them get whatever care they need. I believe that.
Yeah.
Um, but I think the worst thing is to be a victim and have no hope of justice, because you never think anyone will ever listen, hear you, or that you'll never have a case. So as hard and as triggering as it is to go through this process, at the end of the day is hopefully vindication. And and being, because they are not, they've been told in Scientology that everything that they've been through is their fault. So at the end of this, when they finally get that, hopefully that stamp of approval, no, this is not your fault, this is Scientology's fault. They did this to you, you're the victim, you didn't do anything wrong. That's, at the end, I would think that that's going to be such like a relief of burdens. And then hopefully get, some kind of financial justice, get your story out. And, I think at the end, it's going to be so much better. But she said, if people aren't ready yet, they can, like, then don't watch these, don't write in, just don't, like, don't put yourself in a situation that you feel that
No.
you're going to be harmed. Or if you want to at least reach out and then tell them, hey, I'm triggered, I feel, triggered. And, like, I'm going to bring it up to, like, at the police meetings. The 2 weeks ago, Laura came and she went right up there. She was very self-aware. She said, I'm having PTSD right now, I feel triggered, and she was honest. And so, but then she wasn't afraid to come back 2 weeks later. And then she's like, okay, I still feel, like but it's getting better because I got to speak it. I got it out and I feel better. And then, we went to Hugo's office and she got it out more. And then she's like, wow, I feel better. Like, every step of the way, she just like, I feel better. I feel better. I'm feeling calmer. I feel like it's not down yet, but it's starting to, and it's going to be like this too. I think every step of the way, it's the trigger, the trauma maybe. And I'm not an expert, and I don't even pretend to be one, but I would imagine, that hopefully for the outcome would be that they will start finding relief through you going through this process, and they're not going through it alone. They're going
Right.
through it with people who are going to, walk them through it.
Right.
And they have all of us to support them too, even if we don't know who they
Exactly.
are.
And I say that with the utmost respect, is I'm not going to know who's calling in or writing in or emailing, and I shouldn't, and audit shouldn't. That's completely your privacy. But I'm going to tell you, if you need somebody to hold your hand, call me. I'll
Me
hold your
too.
hand. I don't mind doing that. Not because I need to
Same.
know, but if you need somebody, I'll do it. I don't mind.
Same here. And yeah, and it's up to you. Like, they're not going to tell us, but if you want to tell us, some people may want to be very, open about it. Say, yes, I'm doing, and other people may not. It's individual
Right.
personalities and choice.
So Auntie M had a question. Any chance they'll be able to get the PC folders? That's probably part of the plan, was to get the PC folders or the files. Yeah. Whether they'll be destroyed by then, I'm not too sure. But question: Is it so hard to believe no amount of money that can stop this? Priceless. Yeah, it doesn't take money. I think this just takes heart and passion.
Yeah.
Takes
And I think
voices.
it's going to put them finally, it's always been Scientology on the offense and its victims on the defense. This flips that coin. Now the victims are going to be on the offense and they're not going to know really. I mean, it's not like there's never been any suits. And they try to settle and stuff. But depending on how big it is, I don't think they've dealt with anything like this. And so it's just a constant chipping away at their prowess, at their abilities um, to keep victims victimized and keep them down. People are getting stronger. We're all in it. We're all working together. We're all hand in hand. And Scientology, they're just going to have to deal with it. They're not going to like it, but
We're getting here. We're getting here. Thank you, Anne. Thank you. Doesn't matter. I appreciate that.
and hi guys. It's like I can't see the chat, but I appreciate y'all always. And they're smart. They always have the good questions, good, they're protective. They're like, hey, we want to make, and I like the questions that are even challenging because it's like, they're just being protective, and they're making sure like, hey, we want to make sure that, they're going to take care of these people and, stuff. So it's all good.
Yeah, and I'm going to, while I'm finishing looking for questions here, I am not only this one, but tomorrow, there's two more cases we're going to introduce that those with the bigger channels will put this out. My name doesn't need to be on there. My face doesn't need to be on there. I'm pretty sure Serge and Aaron are going to. I don't know if Natalie did. I know they're on vacation. And promote the law firm, promote more information, and to get the word out that people need to report if they feel that they can report. And so I will be standing off again this and saying, please take it, put this in your, if you want to just put the information about the law firm, maybe a link to so that way they get an explanation. But if not, just put it in your feeds. It's not a matter of Mona or audit. It's a matter of getting this out there.
This was about, people don't realize how much you worked. I mean, I'm there because I was doing my things. I have other things I'm doing behind the scenes, but, we talk about everything, but, in in meeting with let me, like to vets, people, it's good to get other people's opinions and stuff, but Mona, you worked hard. You deserve the credit.
Yeah, but that's not really what it's about, though.
I know.
I don't have a claim. I don't really, except for my friends and the people that I've come to know and love. That's the skin I have in the game. And to me, that's the success, is to see them get justice.
Yeah, that's
That's
all we all want
that's my
that.
success.
Yeah, we all want that.
So Afila asks, what about things like psychological abuse, forced labor, especially as a child, and its effects? Things like Natalie suffering neurological disease from years of psychological abuse, just as an example. Afila, tune in tomorrow night.
Yeah.
I know I keep saying that, but we have two
And if
more
you need to,
cases
and if
that
you
are
want to
coming
reach
up.
out to the law firm
This
tonight,
one,
do it, and they can point you in the right direction if it's not what they're gonna, if it's not their purview that they're working on. It doesn't hurt to call, to check in anyway.
exactly. So, question, can you be anonymous? I'm pretty sure you can file as a Jane Doe. I see other people file as Jane Does.
I don't think you'd be able to be anonymous with your attorney, though. I'm not sure on that. You should, that's a great question,
Yeah,
actually.
that's a great question for them, Kathy. And let me find out. And if somebody doesn't want to email themselves, I know the other person, it wasn't your question, but if you don't feel comfortable emailing themselves, I will call or email Kim and ask her.
Yeah, that's a really good question.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe in court you can do Jane Doe's, you know.
Yeah, there is a federal claim that, as I said, I'll present that tomorrow night. Um, Moxon will have to stock up in those adult diapers soon. Just saying, he might want to buy stock in adult diapers.
Right. Well, you know, it's funny. That's actually when I'm still finishing it up, so it's be today or probably tomorrow. I try to do it on Fridays. It's about Moxon, my little my Substack. So it kind of fits together. And it wasn't even planned that way. It's just I'm a little annoyed with him with his little emails to the city attorney regarding me. So
Amy asked, and I saw your comment from earlier. I was going to bring it up in a different topic here about the LAPD and whether they can be held accountable through this, and about how they work with Scientology and have the bias. Yes, and this all of these cases that I'm proposing or that we're going to be working with will fit into a bigger picture puzzle. LAPD is really just a part of that puzzle. But this all rolls up to, I told you, I'm a bippity boppity boo, boom, get it done kind of person. I
she
hate
really
process.
is.
I hate process. But in order to get this done, we got to put the puzzle all together on the table and put it all in them, get everything, all the corners there. And you got to do the frickin' process. So, yeah, that's part of the process, Amy, is holding them accountable.
It's so funny. And I'm the opposite. I'm like, everyone's like, oh, don't, you just want them to hurry up and get done. And I'm like, no, it's a process. You know, you have to go to the, you have to build up, you have to do this and do that. So how to, like, we're both us so opposite on that. It's funny.
Um, I'm going to shout out just because I just saw a comment. How do I go back up here? Amanda said, it's amazing how far we've come just a year and a half from it's a cult to very real strategic actions that are making change from so many angles. Okay, I'm going to give a shout out to two things. One is a person, one is Audit LA, and helping me through this process stuff is saying, no, we can't just jump to chopping everybody's heads off. We have to have the macro and the micro, and we have to look at the different angles, and we have to look at how we need to attack this elephant. And Audit has been incredibly a blessing to me to help me through that process. And then two, I'm giving props to my morning sunshines, because every single morning we are a working station. We talk about things, we talk about opportunities, we talk about what's worked, what hasn't worked. Some mornings we talk about poop and sitting on the couch. You know, we just have all sorts of different conversations, but for the most part, we're a creation station. And that's what it's been for the last 6 months, is we have been talking about things that can make and effectuate change.
And I feel bad because I'm either always sleeping or getting ready to go downtown, one or the other. So
yeah, but you're on the phone the rest of the day with me. So we talk a lot about different things and how things can change and what we need to do to make that change and make it happen. And so things do happen when you talk, when you have conversations. And sometimes we don't agree. Sometimes I put Peter on the couch more than once. It's kind of an inside joke. Sorry.
no, I know.
That's his timeout chair is the
Right.
couch.
Yeah, you don't always have to agree, but like sometimes it's better you brainstorm and you talk, and sometimes it's just finding somebody and you know that you can just talk to, and sometimes it's just venting. Like sometimes it can be frustrating, but I mean, like Mo and I are kind of like the same in that sense. Like I don't want to put everything out there what I'm feeling or what I'm going through, you know, so I don't wear it openly. But I do love and appreciate that I can, you know, call Mo. I'm like, I'm having a meltdown moment. I could be in tears, you know, sometimes I could be in tears and I'm really upset and she'll talk me off the, you know, talk me back, you know, like and calm me down. And so, and also accountability part. It's good to have accountability partners, make sure, we're on point. So everyone should find yourself a Mona.
Peter, holding hands on the
Or
couch.
Peter, find yourself a Peter, find yourself all these great, wonderful people. I mean, like I always say, chats the wind beneath our wings because to me they are. They're just, it would be so much harder and so much, without you guys, without your, the questions, your willingness to jump in and to do and to watch and to help and to call and do whatever. It's like chat deserves that, its own category too. You
I
guys are
agree.
amazing.
Yes, Amy, these cases are going to cause DevT. That's for sure.
You're gonna cost what? I didn't hear that.
DevT, interbulation.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh yeah, they're not going to be happy with us for sure. I mean, they're not going to be happy, but it's
No,
time. It's
definitely.
time. It's past time. It's long past time.
Um, okay, Amy, I didn't see it then. Can you please retype it? I'm sorry, but I looked for it. Yep, Peter, you're right. We need to normalize people coming forward. No victim, no crime.
Right.
Right.
And to face your fears. I know it's anxiety. There's a lot of fears, but sometimes, just to encourage. And like I said, we're all supporting you. Like, we're all, even if we don't know who's calling for it, we all have your back. We're all going to keep fighting for you. Everyone's, everyone that calls in, everyone that hangs a flyer, everyone that, uses a bullhorn or, stands outside of Hollywood, like, and watch them scurry back at everyone. It's like, we all have your back. We're on your side. All of us, except for the plants, but you know what?
It may be hard, but do the victims need medical evidence, etc.? I think it would depend on what the claims are, whether they could be validated, whether it's going to depend.
That's a
Like
lawyer
if,
question
yeah,
anyway.
that is a lawyer question. It really depends because if it was psychological damage or if it was rape or if somebody else knew about it. Yeah.
And I mean, my opinion is that it's less likely, like, see, because you're dealing with beyond a reasonable doubt, you're going to need, because you're going to have to go beyond any reasonable doubt. Like a reasonable man would not be, they had to pretty much be, yeah, they did it. And it's a very different threshold than preponderance of the evidence. It's like, well, more likely than not, did this person go through this? And a lot of that's going to be based on credibility, testimony, and and your facts line, just different things like that. So it's going to be an easier threshold for victims. It's definitely going to be easier than jumping through the criminal. So this is maybe like as training, consider maybe the criminal, like the Olympics. That's going to be the hardest, most treacherous, threshold. And so by getting through this, they're going to be all in shape and ready to go if it can go to that level of criminal.
There was a comment that people coming forward will bring courage to others needing to come forward or wanting to come forward. That's true. And I normally give this picture because it's so, to me, it's so profound to me, is that if I have even just a little bit of courage in me or a lot of courage, if I just open up my heart and let it shine through and pop open to you and you open up your heart and you accept my courage, that's encouragement. That's encouragement. That's sharing our courage together.
Can I say something too? I
Yep.
don't know if I can look them in the eyes. I don't know where to look. To the victims of Scientology, whatever the victimization looks like, I love you. And I know I'm not alone. I know we love you. You are loved. You are cherished. You matter. You mean something. Your story matters. And we're all fighting in the trenches for you because you matter. You're important. Your story needs to be told, and justice needs to happen. And we all want that for you because you are so important and are so loved. And I just want you to know that I love you guys.
Thank you, Audit. Amanda, question, not sure if I'm remembering correctly, but didn't the Jane Does in the Masterson case get around the time limitations because there were 3 of them? Yes. And that's one of the other reasons why what I said, why it doesn't matter, the statute of limitations. And to be real honest, if you have a certain number of them, statute of limitations goes bye-bye. So some of those old victims and witnesses can be brought in also for claims. But I don't know the exact number, and I don't want to
Yeah, the
spit out
lawyers will
wrong
know about
information.
that. And the
Right.
statute of limitations can also be changed if you didn't know you were victimized. It's like when it's really like, say, if you didn't realize you were robbed until, it doesn't go necessarily from the day you were robbed. It can go from the day that you realized you were robbed. So there's a lot of different variations to it. That's why these are all lawyer questions, and each individual person will get a real breakdown. And that's why they have to ask a lot of questions, there, because they're not looking to exclude you. They're asking questions because they're looking to include you, and they're trying to find every, avenue and means to include you.
Right.
That's
And
why
I
there's no
know,
judgment. The judgment's not against you. It's against those who victimized you.
right. And the statute of limitations does change, and it depends on if you didn't even realize you were victimized, or that was the assault until you were 39 and a half, you still have 5 years. So you could be 45 to claim it. So it's definitely a lawyer question.
Yes, and it depends on jurisdiction too, so if you're in
It
Florida,
does.
it's going to be different. And then, there may be some federal laws that affect all states. So there's a lot, and that's why they need to ask all the questions. So I'm just going to encourage everyone not to be intimidated by the questions.
Right.
It's important. It's part of the process.
Don't rule yourself out.
Mm-mm.
So if you have a question, or if you feel that you might be, or that you might want to go down the road of litigation or even be a witness, email them. I encourage you. You know what? I heard the first time I talked to her. I heard the second time I talked to her. I heard the other day. Every single time they say, "Bring it on." They don't say, "Oh no, just 5, just maybe 5." They don't. They say, "If we have 5,000, we have 5,000. We hire somebody." I
Yeah,
mean, that's
this
just
is
their
their
attitude.
passion. Yep. Just like it's become our life passion, right? This is what we wake up and go to bed doing. This kind of thing is what it motivates them. This is their passion. So,
It is. Yeah, we had talked a little bit about that earlier, Amanda, is that, yeah, even if they're beyond the statute of limitations, or if the statute of limitations holds, that they can still be a witness to the pattern in precedence, yes. And yep, Clearwater needs to get their fannies whipped for what they did to Serge. And he not only went to Clearwater Police, but he went to the FBI down there. They were bought and sold big time. And that's parts of the change that need to happen, is maybe some justice for those that served people wrong, inhumanely.
well, lawsuits are a
That's
great
just
way when it
bullshit.
costs city money, states money, and they're losing a lot of taxpayer money because for these cases, that's usually sometimes what motivates them to make changes. Sad to say, but
Yep. Well, nobody changes because it's fun. Change sucks. Change sucks for everybody. And if it's not broke, don't fix it. That's kind of always the attitude. But you make change because you want to, or you have to, right? And either they're going to want to because it's good for them, or we're going to make them make those changes, and they're going to have to make those changes. That's the only way to make change.
it's true.
Make them think it's their idea. That's usually the best way to go about it, but that doesn't always happen when you're talking about legislatures. So wow. Law enforcement was deleting it. Wow. So that is the end of the questions, you guys. If you have any other questions, please feel free to email either of us or leave them on the comments. I'd be more than happy to address anything. I'm just thrilled to be working with such an awesome team. And I'm really wanting that Aaron and Natalie and the Aftermath Foundation people and the bigger channels, I'd like to maybe try and get Tommy G on this and have everybody put out the word so that way people can start contacting Kimberly and Natalie. And thank you, Marie, for that we need to start copying things and we need to start putting things on files so that way if it gets taken down, we have all of this as evidence. You're right.
Great point. See, I told you chat was smart.
Chat's always smart.
I know.
So if there isn't anything else, thank you, Audit, for joining me. I know it's been kind of a interesting day with time-wise, but I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I love this stuff.
Yep. And stay tuned, as I said, for tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, we're going to talk about a civil rights claim, civil rights lawyer, and a federal opportunity that is going to be fun, actually. And I'm really not involved with either one of them. I'm just kind of guiding them along. So with that, I thank you, everyone. Thank you, Haggis. Thank you, Miriam, for staying up so late. I appreciate you. Thanks, Peter, for being nice and sitting on the couch. So
thank you, guys.
Okay, you guys. Ending stream. Good night.
Bye.